Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone around the globe. My name is Mukta Ashok Kumar, and I will be your host for this webinar. Once again, a very warm welcome to our webinar on integration of marketing middleware made simple by Ektron's DXH. For those of you curious as to why we chose this topic for the webinar, let me tell you a few words on Ektron. Ektron is a leading .NET-based web content management system with over 80 pre-built controls, which effortlessly connects and integrates with CRM, marketing automation systems, analytics, SharePoint, etc. Gartner describes Ektron as a visionary, and as per the latest Infotech research, Ektron is an innovator. Now speaking a few words about Suyati Technologies. Suyati has a widespread experience in creating, integrating, and even delivering web content management solutions. And this is especially with respect to Ektron. We have more than 50 Ektron developers, including those with Ektron certification. We maintain a great nexus with them, and we develop plugins and connectors for Ektron, our latest being the Exact Target. We maintain a great nexus with our partners. We are a premium Ektron partner. We are a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We are a Salesforce App Exchange partner, and we have contributed to the Magento open source. We are also partners with Content Crossroads, and our product Waraka was chosen as a cool vendor in 2013. Now, proud to present our panelist, Abhilash. Abhilash is an Ektron solutions architect. Now, besides being very proficient in Ektron, he's also a specialist in Microsoft technologies, who's really obsessed and enthusiastic about technology. Basilesh is an CMS evangelist, an Ektron developer, a very dedicated blogger who has an optimistic attitude and is very passionate about the art of getting things done with technology. And now we have a very pleasant surprise for you all. We are honored to have with us none other than the visionary leader, extremely tech-savvy strategic planner, Tom O'Brien, Vice President of Product Management at Ektron. He oversees the product management and user experience teams. He's one of the prime contributors to Ektron's roadmap, and you can ask him anything about Ektron and probably even about Ektron 12.0. Follow us, our social media tags. Please do feel free to follow us, tag us, or even post your questions on the #Suyati Webinar tag. We'll be continuously monitoring them, and we'll definitely get back to you during the question and answer session. Now, walking you quickly through the agenda of the day, Basilesh will be taking us through the introduction of DXH, including how it will be easier to integrate enterprise applications with DXH. And then Abhilash will explain to us the architecture of DXH, which will be followed by a demo by Basilesh on configuring and setting up a new OneDrive connector. He'll also show us how to pass data from OneDrive to Ektron and vice versa. And then we'll have Tom, who will speak to us on Ektron's plans for digital marketing ecosystem. Now, we intend to complete all this within a span of 40 to 45 minutes, which will then be followed by a question and answer session. You may type in your questions, and we'll definitely take them up towards the end. So, hoping that you all enjoy the broadcast. Basilesh, here you go.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Basilesh here. So let me start off this presentation with an introduction to Digital Experience Hub. What is Digital Experience Hub? What problem is being addressed by Digital Experience Hub, and how does Digital Experience Hub solve this problem? In today's digital era, we don't treat a website as an information provider anymore. A website is more of a business source these days. When I say business source, more focus is on improving the conversion rate of a website. And a conversion can be anything from filling up a form, it can be a sale, even it can be a participation of a website user in a survey. And how does websites improve their conversion rates? Are they independent? Of course they are not. Websites are dependent on various enterprise applications these days. For example, we use Salesforce for tracking initial sales. We use ERP tools like Microsoft Dynamics for tracking order history. And we use tools like Google Analytics for analyzing visitor traffic. And thus, websites rely on various enterprise applications. This is what we have picturized here. So websites do have a collaboration with external applications. And external applications consist of lots of precious data regarding the website. When I say lots of precious data, This data includes customer information, it includes sale information, it includes traffic information, things like that. And now, how do we make use of this information in our website? How do we leverage the capabilities of external applications in our website? Let's take a simple scenario. Imagine the last time you visited an online shopping website. I'm sure you must have greeted with a personalized customer experience there. In fact, I was literally shocked when I got a toys discount coupon on my kid's birthday. So how does this personalized web experience has been provided? Our website should be able to communicate with the external systems in order to provide a personalized, relevant web experience for the site users. For providing such a personalized, relevant web experience, we are in need of an integration with external applications. When I say we need an integration with external systems, does our WCM like Ektron do have a capability for this? Does our websites do have a capability for this? So how do we enable this communication? How about having a platform with all the integrations to enterprise applications? This is the idea of Digital Experience Hub. This is the problem that has been addressed by Digital Experience Hub. Digital Experience Hub is a separate product from Ektron, and it has been shipped with the release of Ektron 8.6, and this product evolved with the release of Ektron 8.6.1, Ektron 9.0, and with the release of upcoming Ektron 9.1. So the point is, like, companies may use different disparate enterprise applications in their organization. Like, they use cloud applications, they use marketing applications, they use CRM applications, they use web analytics applications. So what DXH is saying, like, is there a way to bring all these disparate applications inside Ektron? This is the question that has been answered by Digital Experience Hub, bringing everything together, bring it all together. So this is the idea of Digital Experience Hub. The fundamental concept is like providing interoperability with the external systems. Now let's see what kind of integrations we can have, what kind of connections we can have, what kind of possible connectors DXH is having. So basically DXH comes with pre-built connectors in it, and also it provides the flexibility to have custom connectors in it. So you can even have a connection to a homegrown application of yours. It's something like a flexible architecture. So the first thing is, like, you do have CRM connectors. We use different customer relationship management tools like Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, etc. So how about enabling a communication between a WCM like Ektron and all the CRM tools? It's about leveraging the data from various CRM tools in your website. For example, in the case of Salesforce, we can pick a particular attribute from Salesforce in order to provide a relevant shopping experience for the site visit. And what are the other possibilities? Marketing automation connectors. When it comes to marketing automation connectors, it's about leveraging the attributes in marketing automation systems to provide a personalized web experience for the web user. And when it comes to marketing automation tools, it's more about tracking the behaviors of a website user. For example, we can have connectors to Marketo, we can have connectors to HubSpot, we can have connectors to ExactTarget. When it comes to ExactTarget, Ektron 9.1 is shipping with the ExactTarget connector. And what are the other possibilities? We can even have connectors to web analytics tools. We do have different web analytics tools like Web Trends, Adobe Site Catalyst, Google Analytics, etc. So how can we leverage these enterprise applications? So these web analytics tools possess the real-time analytics data and traffic information for improving our website conversion rate. Like, we can analyze and optimize the landing pages by making use of this information. Let us analyze what is working for our landing page, what gives us more conversion, what gives us more page view, and we can make intelligent decisions based on this data. And how about connecting Ektron to other content repositories? Ektron itself has got its own content repository system. It has got its own DMS system. So how about enabling Ektron to talk to some other content repository like SharePoint? How about enabling a communication between them? It will enable us to have a bidirectional content transfer between these two systems. So these are the possible connectors we can have. So this is the concept of Digital Experience Hub, enabling communication with from Ektron to other enterprise applications. If you see the conceptual diagram of Digital Experience Hub, DXH is a central hub which has got different nodes in it. An individual node is an individual application, and it has got, if you look at this diagram, we do have different nodes in it. We do have repository as a node, we do have CRM as a node, we do have analytics as a node, we do have marketing automation as a node, and we do have Ektron itself as a node. As I mentioned earlier, DXH is a separate standalone product. It treats Ektron itself as a separate application. So we can have a connection to Ektron from DXH. This connection is called as inbound connection, and all the other enterprise applications are treated as outbound connections. So basically DXH has got two terminologies inside it. One is inbound connection, one is outbound connection. When I say inbound connection, it is the connection towards Ektron. When I say outbound connection, it is the connection towards other enterprise applications. Like we can have connectors to SharePoint, we can have connectors to Brightco, we can have connectors to Salesforce, we can even have connectors to marketing automation tools like HubSpot, Eloqua, Silverpop, etc. So this is the whole point of having a product called Digital Experience Hub. And now, how does Digital Experience Hub simplifies integrations? What are the pain points that has been addressed by Digital Experience Hub? So the first thing is like it reduces risk. When I say it reduces risk, it is not affecting any other features. If you establish a new connection or if you remove a new connection, all the existing features of your website or WCM will be unaffected. It is an independent feature and it has got a plug and play architecture. So adding and removing an existing connection isn't affecting any of your functionality. Another point is like it reduces the development cost. You don't have to rely on a developer, or you don't have to have a coding effort for establishing connection to any of the pre-built DXH connectors. So it drastically reduces the development cost as well. Another point is like it reduces time of integrations. We do have a defined user-friendly interface in DXH. So a marketer or site admin can configure or maintain a connection. So it reduces the time of integration as well. Since we are not relying on a developer for establishing or maintaining a connection, it frees up IT resources as well. So these are the important pain points that has been addressed by Digital Experience Hub. Now let's dig into the technical aspects of Digital Experience Hub. I'm handing over the mic to Abhilash and he's going to explain you the architecture of Digital Experience Hub.
Thank you, Bisilish, for putting up the platform for understanding the capabilities of DXH as well as the problems it's addressing. So now this is the time we go into the DXH in detail. Like we are going to see the DXH from a developer's perspective. Before diving deep into the DXH framework, we need to be familiar with a few terms which are used in the DXH world. We all know that the final aim of the DXH is to connect to the external business application, and they are identified as systems. So in the figure, we can see that the HubSpot, the Salesforce, the SharePoint, everything is identified as systems. Now, the central part of the DXH to which all these systems connect is called the context bus. The context bus is the heart of the DXH framework. Okay, now we have the systems connecting to the context bus, but using what? Yeah, the connectors. They are nothing but .NET libraries having the ability to communicate with the systems as well as having the knowledge to shape the data from the systems to form which is understood by the context bus. That is, they simply do the translator job between the DXH and the external systems. The interesting point to be noted here is that, as Bisilish mentioned, Ektron is also a third-party system when we look from the DXH perspective. Ektron itself connects to the DXH environment through the inbound connector, just like any other connector which is used to connect the other third-party solutions. Okay, now we are good to go to understand what is exactly the context bus. Under the hood, the context bus is a simple WCF service. The host application for the service is the Windows service, which will appear as the Ektron context bus service. This service is usually available in the port 808 unless you change it at the time of the installation, and will be always having the net TCP binding. If you have an experience installing the DXH in your system, you would have noticed that at the end of the installation, it shows an address. This is exactly the endpoint of the context bus WCF service. The context bus is a service, so what all are the connectors then? They are also WCF service libraries. Usually, these libraries contain 2 or more services. A normal connector usually exposes 2 services, and these 2 services are iConnector service and the diagnostic service. Okay, we will learn more about these services in the coming slides. Now, what we need to know here is, okay, we have the connectors, we have the context bus, and we have the context bus hosting application. How come the context bus hosting application gets the detail about the connectors or the services to be hosted? I assume you would have guessed. The information coming from the configuration file of the DXH, which is also available in the installation folder of the DXH. In the configuration file, you configure the connector library name, which is the assembly, the DLL name, the connector endpoints, the bindings, and the contracts exposed by the connector. We will have a detailed look into the configuration file. As I mentioned, the 3 things which is going into the configuration file is first the WCF library information, that is the library name, the fully qualified type name of the iConnector implementation class, etc. The next thing is the endpoint names. The WCF library, which is the connector DLL, will be having 2 endpoints in it, that is 2 services in it, that is the iDiagnostic and the iConnector. So both these endpoints will have the names, and these names has to be explicitly mentioned in the configuration file. The last one, but the most important one, the ABC of the WCF, that is address, binding, and the contract. So now let's have a look into the actual configuration file and let's see how it looks. Okay, this is an example of a configuration file, and the first point of our interest is the host part. We can see that, okay, we have a lot of connectors and the information about the connectors is available here. The 2 things to be noted here is it contains a service name and the service type. The service type itself is 3 parts. The first thing, which tells the exact type of the class which implements the iConnector interface. And the next one is the name of the library where connector service is located. And finally, the culture of the library. The next point is the configuration of the endpoints. So the connector ID as well as the endpoint names will be specified in the connector section. And the last point to be noted here is when you expose the connector, the endpoints has to have the binding information, the contract information, and the DNS information. So these things are available here. You need to configure in the client section as well as the services section. So for example, every endpoint will have the information something similar to this. The address will be mentioned, the binding will be mentioned, and finally the contract. The contract will usually be the iConnector contract or iDiagnostic contract. Similarly, in the services section also, you will be mentioning the same things. You need to mention the address and all the contracts exposed by the services. For example, one important point to be noted here is the context bus, as I told you, this is also a WCF service, and the configuration for the context bus service is also along with other connector services. So we can see that the endpoints of the context bus and the contracts exposed by the context bus. Okay, so now we will understand in detail what all are the possibilities with the context bus. So before going deep into the context bus, that is the contract, we need to be familiar with a few more terms. So these terms are nothing but data contracts used by the service contracts. So first we have the object definitions. Okay, before understanding the object definition, we need to first understand what object means. When we think of objects, we actually think of data. Each third-party application has its own representation for the data. For example, Salesforce has contacts. ExactTarget in the sense has subscribers. They are termed as objects in DXH terms. Each object will be having a definition which will tell us whether the object has an ID, whether the object has a name, etc. If we consider these things, for example, the name, the address, etc. are the attributes of the objects, then they also require a definition. Why? Because each attribute will have some information like the name of the attribute, the type of the attribute, for example, whether the type is a numeric or a string, etc. This is exactly what is termed as field definitions. Okay, now we have the definition of the data. So, what is the data as such? How is the data represented? This is the object instances. For example, if we have a contact inside our Salesforce, then a specific contact with some specific values for its attributes are the object instances, and the specific fields having the specific values of these instances are the fields. Okay, this is about the data. Now we need to understand there are operations as well. That is, the operations are some kind of actions which we can do with this business applications. In short, for example, for adding a new contact into Salesforce, we will be having some operations, and for invoking this operation, we need to first have the operation definition, which will tell us the name of the operation, the ID of the operation, and the list of the field definitions, etc. So these are required to actually invoke the operation. So the process to invoke the operation is to create the operation instance from the definition and pass it to the context bus to invoke the operation. So now we are good to go to understand the iConnector interface. That is the first important contract in the DXH world in detail. Let's see the actual contract in the Visual Studio itself. Okay, this is the iConnector interface. Let's try to think in a flow. First, we need to understand what all are the objects supported by this connector. So, for that, what we have is the get object definition name list. This is going to give us a list of flyweight object definitions. Okay, what is this flyweight object definition? This is a simple lightweight object definition which provides us only the ID and the display name of the object. Okay, so how will we get the complete object definition? For that, we need to use the get object definition list. This is going to accept a list of flyweight object definition objects and going to return us the actual object definitions. So we have the definition about the data. So how we will get the actual data? That is the object instances. For that, we have two methods, get object instance or get object instance list. So just like the name depicts, the first one gives us a single object instance and the last one gives us a list of object instances which satisfies a certain criteria. Now we have the data with us in Ektron. Okay, this is not enough. We need to have a way to save the data, probably the manipulated data, the modified data, back to the business application. How do we do that? The method in the iConnector interface which serves this purpose is the save object instance. This method accepts an object instance and push it back to the business application. Of course, we have a lot of details about the data and we have done everything like retrieving the data and saving back to the business application. But this is not enough. We need to perform some of the operations as well. For this, first of all, we need to know what all are the operations supported by the connector. The function which is going to help us here is get operation definition list. This is going to give us a list of operation definitions. Once we have the operation definition, we will be able to create the operation instances and then use the method invoke operation of the same contract to pass the operation instance and finally get the operation executed. Having said all these things, first thing which we need to keep in our mind is that almost every business application will mandate the user to log in to make use of its functionalities. This means the connector also needs to log in to the business system to provide the data and perform the operations. For this purpose, we have the login and logout methods exposed from the same interface. You see it here. So the normal practice when we do operations with the DXH connectors is, first we log into the system, that is to the connector, then we perform a series of operations like invoking the operation to retrieve some object definitions or object instances, and after we complete our business logic, we log out of the connector. So this is almost pretty much everything about the iConnector interface. And the important thing is that this is a mandatory contract to be implemented by every DXH connector. So we will move on to the next important contract in the context bus, that is iContext bus itself. We will have a look into the context bus interface. First thing is, okay, it's a bit surprising to see that this is almost similar to the iConnector interface, except the fact that every function is added with an extra parameter called connector ID. This says one thing: whatever things which is possible using the iConnector interface is possible using the context bus if we have the proper connector ID. The idea of the DXH is you catch hold of the context bus, have the proper connector ID, get the things done using the connector. The extra functionality which we see here is get registered connector list. So this is the function which gives us a list of all the registered connectors available in the DXH installation. So this is pretty much everything about the context bus. So now the point which we have in our mind is, okay, we have the context bus, but how do we access the context bus? This has to be answered in two different ways. First thing is, if we are inside an Ektron website, that is accessing the context bus from an Ektron website. And another aspect is accessing the context bus outside Ektron website. For example, if you are having your own web application, or for some reason if you are having a command line application also, how to access the context bus. Before understanding details about accessing the context bus, we need to understand what all are the contracts exposed by the context bus. Let's have a look back into the configuration file to see an introduction about the contracts exposed by the context bus. If we see here, the endpoints which are defined under the context bus specifically mentions the contracts exposed by the context bus. That is, first one is iContext bus itself, second one is iTask manager, similarly iEvent manager, exception manager, and connection manager. So having all these things in our mind, Ektron website or the Ektron min site creates wrapper classes to access all these contracts. Let's see that first. This is an Ektron website, and if you see under the app code section, CS code section, and DXH folder, we will have few wrapper classes. For example, the connection manager, context bus client, event manager client, exception manager client, task manager client. These are nothing but the wrapper classes for accessing those contracts from the context bus. Another aspect is when we log in or when we try to use the context bus from our own application. If you're really familiar with WCF aspects, this is not a tough job because we know that context bus is merely a WCF service hosted in a specific endpoint. So now we know the endpoint also because it is provided to us when the DXH is getting installed in our machine. So we will have a look into a small demo application to understand how the context bus is accessed outside the Ektron environment. This is a sample web app which I wrote to access the context bus outside Ektron. Okay, this website has nothing to do with Ektron. It's a simple web application. We can see that the normal way the WCF services are consumed, we just use the same method here. We have a .NET TCP binding. We have specified the endpoint address. And finally, we use the factory to create the instance of the object. And this is exactly the context bus. And the rest of the methods which I have written under this statements, for example, get registered connectors, get HubSpot connection parameters, get HubSpot object definition name list, will be giving you a hint how I can make use of the context bus and leverage its functionalities. Let's first have a look into the get registered connectors. Okay, here what the intention is to have a look into the connectors registered in my system. I am making use of the get registered connector list method of the context bus to get a list of connectors. And the next one, okay, assume that okay, we have the connection, we have a connector already available. Let's say it's a HubSpot connector. But how do you connect to this HubSpot connector? We need to first understand that, okay, there is a login method for the HubSpot and there are some required parameters to be logging in. So the connector exposes, or the connection manager exposes a function get connection parameters list. Okay, this connection manager is a new thing. But we know that the connection manager is also another contract exposed by the context bus itself. So just like similar to the way I created the context bus, I have created the connection manager as well. So using that connection manager, I get the connection parameters for the context bus, for the HubSpot connector. So now I just want to know what all are the object definitions supported by the HubSpot. So for that, I logging into the context bus first, that is to the HubSpot connector first, then make use of the method get object definition name list and passes the ID HubSpot, which will give me a list of object definitions supported by the HubSpot connector. Okay, let's simply run this program and see the result. So to summarize, it's going to list us the connectors registered in our system DXH and the HubSpot connection parameters required and the contacts exposed or the object definitions available from the HubSpot. So it simply lists out the connectors in the beginning. I have the inbound connector, the Marketo, Salesforce, etc. The HubSpot has a one connection parameter, which is the HubSpot API key, and the object definition names supported by the HubSpot is only one, and that is the contacts. So now we understood a lot of details about the context bus and how to access the context bus. And now we will see the things in action. For this, we have created a dummy connector which connects the OneDrive. Till yesterday it was SkyDrive. connector to the Ektron. We think of leveraging the functionality of this cloud-based storage service to Ektron, and this connector will be providing us the functionality of downloading a file from OneDrive to Ektron and uploading a file from the Ektron DMS to the OneDrive. The important thing is that, okay, once we have this connection established, from anywhere in the Ektron website, whether it is from a page, whether it is from the work area widget, we can make use of this connector functionalities. For the demonstration, we have created a work area widget to upload files from the Ektron's library to SkyDrive and sync a file from SkyDrive to Ektron's library. So first we will see in the source code itself. I will just show you how we can call or invoke an operation which is called as download SkyDrive files. This is an operation exposed by the SkyDrive connector. How we can invoke this method for using the context bus. So here we are inside an Ektron website. So we are using the context bus client to leverage the functionalities of context bus. We create the context bus client, we log into the context bus, the SkyDrive connector, and we create an operation instance, and the operation instance is going to specify the display name of the operation, the ID of the operation, which is really important, and the fields. The fields are nothing but the parameters for this operation. So obviously for a file download, the file to be downloaded, the path, the name, the type, and finally the username and password are the expected parameters of this operation in this connector. So my colleague Bislesh will be giving a small demo of the SkyDrive connector and from how the Ektron work area widget is getting or having the functionality of the SkyDrive integration later. But before going into that, we would like to have a quick look into the data flow happening through the DXH environment for this SkyDrive connector. We know that, okay, everything happens through the connectors. The Ektron passes the data to the inbound connector, which finally puts it into the context bus. And the context bus passes it to the connector for the OneDrive, and finally the data reaches the OneDrive. For passing something back from the OneDrive to Ektron, it takes the same path but in the reverse way. So I assume that's all pretty much about the internal details of DXH and you were able to make some use of it. Now before we conclude, we will have a quick demo of the SkyDrive connector and how easy we can do it in a desktop widget to send and receive files from SkyDrive. I welcome Bislesh to have a quick demo of the SkyDrive connector.
Thanks, Abhilash. It's been a wonderful explanation on the technical aspects of DXH. Hi everyone, this is Bislesh again. Now let's see OneDrive DXH connector in action. Let me just go to my Ektron website and yes. So I'm in the settings section now. Let's go to the Digital Experience Hub node over there, and there we have an Add Connection menu. So in the Add Connection menu, if you could see, there is an Add SkyDrive connection option there. So we are already done with the SkyDrive connector and its configuration and settings. So we do have a new option over there in the Add Connection menu, which is the Add SkyDrive connection. So let me just click that Add SkyDrive connection option. So it's giving me a pop-up over there and it is asking me for the SkyDrive credentials there. So basically I need to fill in the SkyDrive username and SkyDrive password there in order to authenticate the SkyDrive towards Ektron, in order to make Ektron communicate with the SkyDrive. So since I have already filled in the SkyDrive credentials and I already do have few SkyDrive DXH connections in my Ektron main site, so I'm not going to fill in these details right now. Let's just reuse few existing connections. So if you look into this particular table over there, you could see few SkyDrive connections over there. There is a SkyDrive demo connection, there's a new SkyDrive connection. So we'll just reuse any of the SkyDrive connections for our desktop widget. So let's just go to the desktop right now, and we'll just see the desktop widget in action. So basically the desktop widget is asking me to choose the SkyDrive DXH connection. So basically I do have 3 different SkyDrive accounts authenticated with my Ektron min site, and I'm just choosing the new SkyDrive DXH connection over there. So basically this new SkyDrive DXH connection is a demo account, and I do have few files over there in the new SkyDrive account. So let's just quickly log into this particular demo account, and we'll see what are the files over there. So let me just go to the SkyDrive, and yes, so this is the particular SkyDrive account which I have chosen right now. So basically we have got 3 files over there. Now we will go back to the Ektron widget, and we'll see the functionalities that has been offered by the desktop widget over there. So we are authenticated towards the particular account which I have shown right now. It has got 3 files, 1 Word document, 1 PPT is there, 1 image file is there. So basically inside the widget it is listing me the Ektron library files and SkyDrive files. When you look at the SkyDrive file section, you will be able to see the 3 documents which I have shown right now, which is the 1 Word file is there, 1 PPT is there, and 1 image is there. These are 3 files which is there in the OneDrive connector. So basically it is listing all those OneDrive or SkyDrive files, and when it comes to the library sections, it is populating the library files which this particular min site is processing. Now when it comes to the functionalities of this particular widget, it is basically enabling communication between these 2 different content repositories. It is allowing a bidirectional content transfer between Ektron and SkyDrive. So the functionalities is something like this. We'll be able to upload a particular Ektron library file to SkyDrive or OneDrive. Also, it offers the functionality of syncing a particular SkyDrive file back to Ektron. So these are the 2 functionalities that has been offered by this particular widget. Now what we can do is, like, we'll just try picking a particular library file, and we'll just try uploading it to SkyDrive. So let me just pick that test.docs document over there, and let me just click that upload to SkyDrive button. So I just click that button, and now the request is processing. So what it does is, like, it is picking this particular library file from Ektron, and it is syncing this particular file to the SkyDrive account. So the alert is saying, like, file is uploaded successfully. So we'll be able to see this particular file in our SkyDrive account. Let me just click that OK button over there, and now we will go and see the particular OneDrive account over here. Let's just refresh this particular link, and we will see whether the new file, which was the test.docs document, whether this file came in here or not. We'll just check that. So let me just reload this particular file, and we'll see whether the file has been uploaded or not. Yes, if you look at the screen, we'll be able to see a new file added to the OneDrive account, which is the test.docs document. So we do have 4 documents in the OneDrive account right now. So we are done with the first functionality that has been offered by our widget, which is uploading a particular library file to OneDrive. Now we will see the other functionality, which is like downloading a particular SkyDrive file back to Ektron. So let's do one thing. Let's fix the dxh.docs document over there, and let's just sync it to Ektron. So what it does is, like, it downloads this particular Word document from SkyDrive, and it pulls it back to Ektron. So the download is happening right now. The sync is happening right now. Let's just wait for a few seconds until the request is being processed, and we'll go and check the library files, and we'll verify whether this particular file is successfully synced to Ektron or not. So the alert is saying that the file is downloaded successfully. Yes, so if you look at the Ektron library files section right now, we do have dxh.docs over there. This is the particular file which I have chosen right now. So let's just go to the library, and we'll verify this once again. So I'm just going to the library, and inside the SkyDrive files folder, we'll be able to see this particular file over there. Let me just choose files here. Yes, we do have dxh.docs file over here. So this is the functionality that we have offered through this particular desktop widget. So what it does is like it enables a communication between Ektron and SkyDrive. So this is it about the SkyDrive connector, DXH connector, and yes, so that's it about the SkyDrive DXH connector, and moving on. And now has come the moment we have all been waiting for. One of the leading lights of our industry, Tom O'Brien, Vice President of Ektron, will speak to us. He will be discussing Ektron's future plans for digital marketing ecosystems. So get ready to welcome the future. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us this morning or this afternoon, wherever you may be. That was a fantastic overview of the digital landscape of the Ektron Digital Experience Hub. I wanted to give some backdrop for folks around where we're going, why we're going. It's more in terms of strategic direction, and also field any questions that attendees may have around the DXH specific and Ektron roadmap or those items. As a quick introduction, I'm the Vice President of Product Management here at Ektron. My role professionally is to get user feedback, understand what's working today, what are the pain points. It doesn't necessarily have to do anything to do with the system. It could be just this very consistent theme maybe out in the marketplace. I take that information back to our engineering team. We get an understanding of what is technically feasible to solve, put a plan together around how it will be solved, and move that forward. So just a quick background of my role in the organization. So the Digital Experience Hub really came out of a couple of trends a few years back. As laid out in the conversation just a bit ago, it was rolled out in 8.6, which is coming up on 2 years ago. At the time we were going in this direction, we saw a phenomenon where there's a lot of organizations who were bundling content management with customer relationship management, CRM, or marketing automation, or campaign management, or all sorts of items all together, analytics being another good example, where the reality is that customers had their favorite CRM. They had Salesforce already, and it was very unlikely that they're going to try to jump into a proprietary Salesforce. Furthermore, we knew that we weren't, or others are not going to out analytics, Google Analytics. So strategically, we knew it just didn't make sense. It's not going to be in the customer's best interest that they already use Google Analytics, as you all know, if you use Google Analytics, very powerful analytics engine. We're not going to try to recreate that and compete with Google on that front. We're going to take a turn and really make it easy for users to leverage the investments they have. So from that point of view, these investments like SharePoint or CRM or Google Analytics, in many cases there's licensing costs involved, so it's not necessarily a gimme that they would just toss that away. There's also training involved. There's also business processes built around these systems, or on SharePoint, and how content is managed in SharePoint. So rather than asking those organizations to retrain their system and recreate process around a new system, we're really looking at what we call a best-of-breed approach. This is the ability for our users to leverage systems in-house that they already have for different reasons, and have the benefit of all those systems and not have to go through the cost and expense around throwing everything out and having one system to rule them all. Secondly, like I talked about, we know we're not going to out analytics, Google Analytics, or out CRM, Salesforce. They're going to do it better than we could. So why are we going to even try? It just gets confusing. So that's what's really behind the Digital Experience Hub. Strategically, as far as the design goes, our goal was laid out here, is in the center there's a Windows service. It acts as, in other conversations I've expressed as the ETL, the extract, transform, load type of ability to get data out of one system, transform it, and then load it into another system. Get an item out of SharePoint, transform it into a content item, and save it into Ektron, being an example. Our design goals are to allow organizations like Suyati, who is my trusted go-to partner for connector development. They have been a fantastic partner to work with. Have organizations like Suyati be able to create connectors and plug them into the system very easily and very seamlessly. So that's what some of this experience that Suyati has walked you through. Going forward, that's the history of the connectors and the DXH and where we came from. Going forward, as we add more connectors into the ecosystem, if you will, or the ability for marketing and other parts of the organization to leverage different applications, we want to have the DXH be kind of a digital silhouette of a site visitor. As a site visitor comes to the website, we would know that be able to get their vertical from Salesforce or their purchase history from ERP, getting all this information that's scattered throughout the enterprise, be able to put this digital silhouette together so that we know that if you have a purchase history of washing machines as evidenced by the ERP system, let's show you more about washing machines or books or whatever that might be. If we know that your vertical is in real estate based off of Salesforce, let's show you content about real estate. Let's have a kind of a customized look and feel for the site based on the vertical you have, or all this information. So being able to bring to bear all this information about the site visitor into the site, so the site visitor has a very focused and personalized user experience on the site. They're having a relevant conversation, and by that I mean the website. I view the website as a voice in the conversation, and the site visitor as a second voice in the conversation. And having a conversation between these two entities, the site visitor and the site itself, where the site visitor says through search or through downloading ebooks or through videos or whatever that might be, they're saying, I'm interested in learning more about this. And having the site understand what that means and anticipate, okay, oh, you want to learn more about widgets? Well, let me show you more content about widgets. Or, oh, I remember you were here last month and you were interested in widgets. Let me show you some new things we have about widgets. So having a very focused site visitor experience that's relevant to them and quote-unquote personalized. And personalized doesn't necessarily mean their name, hello, Tom. It just means it's personal. It knows who I am. It knows what my interests are, or it can anticipate what my interests are based on what it does know about me, so that my site visitor experience on the site is very relevant to what I'm trying to accomplish. So as the DXH goes forward, the DXH is a piece of technology that is fundamental in the ability to collect information across all these different systems, put them together in what I call this digital silhouette. So the CMS, the content management system, can leverage all this data about site visitors to the site visitor's advantage. Secondly, the business's advantage. It's obviously we want to have a superior site visitor experience. On the other hand, we also see the ability for marketing teams. So as a marketing team who interacts with the content management system, my goal in life professionally would be, presumably, I want site visitors to do what marketing calls a conversion. This is the ability for a site visitor to fill out a form that has their information such that sales can follow back up with them. So users would do that because they want to register for a webinar, or that they want to download an ebook, or whatever that goal from the site visitor's point of view is. From marketing point of view, they want to serve content that is going to drive that conversion. So of course, content that's relevant to the site visitor is more likely to convert the site visitor. Or in other words, if the site visitor comes onto the site and we're not talking the same conversation, the site visitor wants to talk about widgets, but the site is talking about email newsletter, then it's a weird conversation if you take my understanding. So if the site is talking to the user in a very relevant way, the user is more likely to convert. So there's a value from the marketing's point of view as well. Marketing being able to run analytics around how are my site visitors interacting with the system, as evidenced by conversions and other things. And being able to focus content that's really relevant to site visitors has kind of a two-way benefit. Focused on the site visitor for a relevancy and superior user experience on the site, and focused on business users in the organization for marketers to be able to focus content and drive results for the business and be able to report on what those results are. In the middle of all that information, that pivot, if you will, is the DXH. So that's a quick kind of snapshot of where we were over the past 2 years, where we are today in terms of getting connectors built and plugged into the system, enabling partners like Suyati to write these connectors and log them into the system very easily and quickly. And then as the stable of connectors grows, the ability for customers to leverage more and more systems as part of this targeting and personalization. With that said, I would love to hear any thoughts, questions you might have around the DXH, or even just an open mic, and if there's any questions around the strategic history of the DXH and where we're going next.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you on board. Thank you for such a wonderful and informative session. We are really glad that you took the time out of your busy schedule to address us. Now the floor is open to questions. We are ready to address your questions. Feel free to shoot your questions. You may type in your questions using the questions feature on GoToMeeting. We have a question. DXH is meant for Ektron to communicate with external applications. Why is it not creating the inbound connector by itself?
I can answer that question. So,
okay, great.
This is part of the user experience that we really kind of struggled with, to be honest with you. So when we walked into it, so to speak, when we were designing the user experience, here's the conversation we were having internally. We knew that the Ektron user was going to be logged into Ektron at the time they're configuring all this information, and it would be weird for us to ask for connection information because from the user's experience that they're already in the system. Why are you asking me to log in again? On the other hand, we didn't want to assume that the current user who is logged into the system is the users whose credentials should be used to drive updates across the line. So if someone updates content in SharePoint, it goes through SharePoint, through the DXH has to log into Ektron using someone's credentials and update the items. And we didn't want to assume that those credentials will be current active user. So we ask for an inbound connection in a way to kind of convey both. We're trying to get information about when we're logging back into Ektron in unattended mode. Again, there may be nobody in the work area at the time someone's in SharePoint making changes. So therefore, there's no user in the work area at that time. But the system still needs to be able to log in. So we needed to convey both. We need credentials to log back in such that when updates are to be applied to Ektron, we obviously need credentials, but we didn't want to assume it was the current user. Did that answer the question?
Hopefully that would have been the best answer. Now we have another question. We have set up a staging and production environment for our website. Is there any best practices for configuring the DXH?
Great question. And there's a couple of variables here, and I'm going to throw a couple of examples and then fill them in. But I think maybe we could take the conversation offline too if this is something you need more information on. So there's a couple of different approaches. In one world, the authoring server goes to the DXH. Let's suppose I'm mapping a form to Salesforce. And in the authoring side of the house, when I'm testing information on the authoring server, I don't want form submissions to go to my production Salesforce. I want it to go to my sandbox. On the other hand, when forms are lifted up on production, I absolutely want form submissions to go to production, not the sandbox. So while the DXH is shared between those two instances, there's some routing logic such that forms on production should go one path and forms on staging should go on another. There's different ways that can be applied. One is having one DXH shared between the two systems, and that there's a connection in the DXH from a user experience in the work area. I create a connection to Salesforce. I call it Salesforce Production. I create a second connection in Salesforce. I call it Salesforce Sandbox. And that when forms are moved up to production, I repoint them. I go into the work area on production, and I repoint them to production versus Sandbox. On the other hand, if I wanted that to be a little smoother, I might have one DXH dedicated to staging and one DXH dedicated to production, and just have a connection name called Salesforce. And in the DXH in production, it's pre-configured to go to production, and then the DXH in authoring is pre-configured to go to staging, Sandbox. So both of those are very valid scenarios, and that's probably the example that I could highlight that probably illustrates things to think through as you're putting that together. As far as the best practice, I believe we do have a document that I could make available to folks on the Dev Center around getting different systems configured. Another variable here would be eSync, around being able to have DXH eSync and the CMS configured to meet your customer's needs.